Did you know that every year in the U.S., between 70,000 and 80,000 people are arrested for prostitution? 70% of those arrests are women. The purpose of my speech is to convince you that prostitution should be legalized. The three arguments I will present to you are the following: current legalization of prostitution, prostitution should be legalized, the woman's right to prostitute. Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is prostitution? So before I present my three arguments, I will educate you on the textbook definition of prostitution. Prostitution is the practice of occupation of engaging in sexual activity with someone for payment. Now I will begin with my first argument, the current legalization of prostitution. According to criminal.fine.law.com, in their article titled Federal and State Charges for Prostitution, in all states except parts of Nevada, prostitution is illegal. Some state statutes punish the act of prostitution, and some state statutes criminalize the acts of soliciting prostitution, arranging prostitution, and operating a house of prostitution. Prostitution is strictly regulated in Nevada. Brothels that are strictly regulated in Nevada are mainly in isolated rural areas away from the majority of Nevada's population. So for argument number one, the opposition, prostitution should remain illegal to prevent the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. Rebuttal, the brothels in Nevada are strictly regulated and the prostitutes are state licensed. They are required to give monthly blood tests to check for sexually transmitted diseases and get regular physical exams by the doctor. Customers that come to buy sex from the sex workers are also required to fill out healthcare forms and use condoms. Let's proceed to my next argument, which is prostitution should be legalized. Legalizing prostitution can be both safe and profitable. It has many positive benefits for the safety of women and the economy. The nextfine.com's article about the 20 pros and cons of legalizing prostitution states that legalizing prostitution will decrease sexual violence against women and children due to the individuals having the opportunity to engage in sexual congress with a sexual worker without the fear of facing criminal charges, instead of pursuing innocent women and children. According to NYLN.org's article on 6 principal pros and cons of legalizing prostitution, in regards to sexual abuse and sexual violence on women and children that they face, legalizing prostitution can give women the rights to encourage them to seek help if a violation has been done to them. Bills and acts can be passed if prostitution is legalized. These bills can protect the interests of sex workers from sexual and physical abuse and diseases contracted in that line of work. The nextfine.com states that human trafficking is one of the biggest problems of prostitution. But with the legalization of prostitution, human trafficking should reduce and not force people into this line of work. Legalizing prostitution can also boost the economy and the tourism department. Prostitution is legal in countries like Thailand and the Netherlands, and those countries have a booming and very profitable venture at the tourist department. So for argument number two, the opposition. Many men and women that have sexual desires and lust to sexually abuse women and children can forego those urges by being with a sex worker whenever they want without the fear of facing criminal charges. The rebuttal, customers of sex workers feel they can treat the sex worker any kind of way in which violence arises from those acts of sex. Finally, I will discuss my last argument with you. The woman's right to prostitute. The woman's right to prostitute. Women should have a right to choose to participate in prostitution without being arrested. According to open.lib.umn.edu, in the 9.4 section regarding prostitution, prostitution has been very common since the ancient times. Priests had sex with prostitutes. Ancient Greece had legal brothels that served political leaders and common men alike. In the Middle Ages, Europe had many legal brothels that were an important source of tax revenue. Prostitution was also very common in the United States during the 19th century, and many U.S. cities had legal brothels. Prostitution was very common during the Civil War. Around 1910, the immorality of prostitution became a huge concern amongst religious groups because of the many middle-class girls that became prostitutes. Prostitutes are regular people, just like you and I. They're just trying to earn a living. Prostitution includes two adults consenting to take part in a mutually beneficial sexual act. Prostitution should be viewed just like any other job. It's a service that's being performed for a fee. HG.org's article on why is pornography legal and prostitution is not points out that pornography that includes sex in the course of creating a movie or a photo is an expression protected under the First Amendment, and that porn stars are paid to act and prostitutes are paid for sex. There is such a negative image painted around the term prostitution, but prostitutes come from various backgrounds in life, including your local college students. Penn State Science in Our Realm, Certainty and Continues, article on sites.psu.edu stresses the importance that although there are thousands of women in this profession suffering, the legalization of prostitution in the state of Nevada has allowed women to live safely in organized brothel houses, providing them shelter, protecting them from sexually transmitted diseases, physical and emotional abuse, rape, and assault. So for argument 3, the opposition, many people with religious and conservative views consider prostitution immoral. The rebuttal, prostitution is the world's oldest profession and common during the ancient times. Priests and political leaders have had sex with prostitutes. In conclusion, I presented you my 3 arguments about the legalization of prostitution. The current legalization of prostitution, prostitution should be legalized, and the woman's right to prostitute. I hope I provided you with enough information pertaining to the positive aspects of prostitution. I will leave you with this quote by M.F. Moonsegler that can be found on Goodreads.com. Dating is a no-charge prostitution. Thank you.